Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Welcome to this Uwazi demo. My name is Kristen. I'm the Director of Programs here at Herodox. And a few things I wanted to tell you before we get started. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and type those into the chat box in the YouTube video that you're watching. It's just to the right-hand side of the video. And please go ahead and introduce yourself if you feel comfortable sharing that information. Let us know why you're interested in learning more about Uwazi. Also, I want to make sure everybody knows that this is a public and live call. So please don't chat or say anything that might be sensitive. And this call is going to be recorded. To that end, I'm going to be talking for about 20 minutes, but then I will stop and we'll take a look at your questions. And my colleague Indira will also be managing those questions that come in over the chat. Okay, so let's get started. What is Uwazi? Let's start with that. Uwazi is a free open source solution for organizing, analyzing, and publishing your documents. It's licensed under MIT. Open source just means that anybody can go in and see the code rather, and download the technology itself and use it. You can also adapt it. In Swahili, Uwazi means openness, and that really speaks to this idea of being able to publish and access human rights documents more easily. Herodox designed Uwazi to make human rights information more open and accessible to human rights defenders. This tool was launched in October of 2017, and we're currently at version 1.2. This is a browser-based platform. That's how we run it here at Herodox, but anybody could set up this platform on their own server or on their device and run it locally if that's better for you. This browser-based platform goes beyond just storing and tagging documents. Users are able to work directly with the text inside these otherwise uneditable documents to add new layers of information. And I'm going to show you how that works in just a minute. This platform is developed and maintained by Herodox. We have a 6-person team of in-house developers as well as a systems administrator. Okay, so let me show you. I'm going to start out by showing you some examples of Uwazi instances that are already launched, so you can see how the features work from a visitor perspective. So the first example I'm going to show you here is from Sahil, the Center for Justice and International Law. They have a very large collection of documents and other information related to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. I'm just going to switch this to English. If I go to their entire collection of information, you can see that each piece of information, each document is displayed as a card in this main window. And on the right side panel, you'll see all of the filters that you can use to filter down your search of these documents and entities in this main window. And I'll explain a little bit more what we mean by entities in just a minute. So if you wanted to look at all the documents in this collection, you could filter down by documents, and you can see that there are all different kinds of types of documents. So if you wanted to just look at the admissibility reports, you would just uncheck all of these filters. And you can see that we have 216 admissibility reports in this collection. And when you want to go in and look at one of these the actual documents, you can click on this view button and it will bring up the PDF for you in the main window. And on the right side panel, it will show you the metadata that's attached to this document that the administrator has put together. And you can also see some other information that might help you understand this document a little bit more. Sorry, it's still loading. Sometimes it takes a little while when it loads for the very first time, and I've never opened this document before. So one of these options in this right side panel is table of contents. The administrator has put this together, and these link directly to those sections of the document. So when you click on any one of these, it will bring you to that section. Oh, there we go. So I just clicked on the state's position, and I see it's brought me to that part of the document. So this can be helpful, just to make it easier on your visitors and readers to find the information that they're looking for. But you can also make this table of contents in a way that makes sense for your particular visitors. So in that way, you can kind of curate the information. Okay, let me go back here. Let's go back and look at the entire library. I want to look at just the cases. And I see that they actually have a menu item up here just to look at the cases or processes. This is how they've organized their information. Case is kind of like a container for multiple documents and other entities in their collection. So let's go ahead and look at this Alfonso Martin case. I'm going to view that. I can see that they've put together this nice timeline at the top, and each circle here represents one of the documents within this case. And each of the documents has, sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. Each document has a date attached to it, and that's how it's displaying in this timeline. So if you hover over this first circle, you'll see that it's the admissibility report that was published on October 10th, 2001. And then you can see that a judgment was made on September 3rd, 2004. If I go into one of these documents, again, I see that there's a table of contents. Let me go back out here. If I look, actually, let me go back into this document, sorry. Under information, on this right side panel, I can see all the people that are the signatories to this particular document. I know that each one of these is really big, so I'm hoping that it will load. If I go into Sergio and I want to look at all the information that is connected to Sergio, who is a judge that has signed, that's a signatory to this document, I would just click on him. Sergio, in this case, is an example of an entity. In Uwazi, the way that you organize your information is through either using document types or entity types. And in this case, Sahil has put together an entity type of a judge or commissioner. So even though Sergio isn't a document, he can still exist in this collection because he provides another layer of information and another way to look for information that might be connected to him, such as other documents and other cases and other judges. So here we're looking at Sergio, and we're looking at all of the relationships from Sergio to other pieces of information in this collection. And the way that I got here was clicking on this connections button in the top right-hand corner. I can see that there's 3,631, which is a lot. So Sergio is connected to this court judgment, Rios y Otros. But I can also see that there's all these other judges that are signatories to this same judgment. And they are, in a way, then related to Sergio, but maybe not directly. They're all connected to this judgment. So that can be really helpful to see these like other layers of connections that are more indirect. And I'll show you some more examples of that later on. So the other thing I wanted to show you about Sahil before I move on to other examples is the languages feature. You can see that this particular collection, a lot of it has been translated. The original language is Spanish, and a lot of it has been translated into English and Portuguese. So the visitor can just click back and forth between these different languages. but I'm going to stop that. Okay, let me bring you to another example. This is a collection that has been built by the University of Pretoria, their Human Rights Center. This is a collection of cases, case law of the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and also commentary on these cases from people at the Human Rights Center. So if you look at the commentaries that they have here, these are documents that they've put together themselves. Something I wanted to show you is the references feature. So if you just click on any of these cards, it'll give you like a little teaser of the metadata and other information in this right side panel. So you don't have to actually go in and view the entire document in order to see some of this helpful information on the side. And one of these options is to look at the references that are connected to different text within this document. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the document. This is a very short document. It's just a brief commentary on a couple other documents. So what they've done is linked this specific reference to another document in the collection. If I click on this link, it will show me that this is the reference that we're referring to. This is the title of the document up here. And this paragraph here is the specific reference. So what we're doing here is referencing one paragraph to another, which can be incredibly helpful when you are trying to support your audience in this kind of research. So we can go ahead and then click on this document or click on this exact paragraph, and it will bring you to that document in the collection. Okay, I want to show you another example. This is from an organization called Happy Kai in Peru. The project is Memoria y Ciudadanía. I know I'm terrible at pronouncing Spanish words, so I apologize. They have a really impressive collection of documents related to corruption in Peru. You can explore the cases or the people involved or the documents themselves. So if I go into here and take a look at some of these cases, you can open up any of these cases. Here's some basic information on the case in this main window, but then over here on the right side panel, I can go ahead and look at the connections again, and I can see the documents that are related to this case and also the people. So this person, Alan, is related to this case. And if you wanted to, you could go in and take a look at Alan and see all the other cases and other people and other documents that are related to Alan. Let's look at another example here. This is the Atlas of Torture. This is another interesting collection of information, which is issue specific, obviously. So they have collected reports, guides, jurisprudence, other resources that advocates can use in their fight against torture and torture prevention. So you can see here on the right side, they have a big collection of filters for their documents. You can search by region, themes, the language of the documents, the sources, the document types. So if you're looking for jurisprudence, there's 491 documents. If you're looking for handbooks, there's 27 of these. You can search for legal instruments, groups of people, sessions. Yeah, so this is another way of organizing your collection. Each collection of documents is going to be very different, as you can already see, and there's so many different ways to organize this for your specific audience. The next example I want to show you is action on albinism. This project has a collection of documents for advocates over here in their library, but they also have this interesting way of displaying for their visitors how a country is progressing in terms of their targets on their regional action plan related to albinism. So you can see all these different charts down here, and we're pretty excited about this project because we think that this can go a long way in supporting activists who are working more on social cultural rights, economic social cultural rights, where you're measuring states' progress in realizing these rights as opposed to documenting like attacks against people or documenting human rights abuses. So we think this can be a really powerful approach, and we're moving forward on this. And finally, I want to show you this example. This is still under development, but we have a project going with Transgender Europe, and they are documenting cases of discrimination, harassment, and even violence against trans people in Europe. And I wanted to show you this Geo feature. So you can display content through a geographic map. And you can zoom in to any particular area. And each bubble would have this number of how many pieces of whatever kind of information it is that you have in your collection. So these are people. The 9 represents people, and each person is representing a specific incident, whether that's an act of discrimination or violence or harassment. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, okay, Kristen, show me what this thing actually looks like. So let me bring you to our demo instance. Anybody can access this demo site. It's just demo.uwazi.io. And the first thing I'm going to do is log in. And the login info is demo. And it's no secret. Anybody can log in and mess around with this, and the data will be reset every 6 hours. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is your account settings, which is this button in the top right-hand corner. This brings you to a place where you can manage your settings and also your what we call metadata. Let me walk you through the settings. You have your account information. You have a place where you can create new user accounts. Right now, we have 2 different types of roles, but we are hoping to build this out to a more advanced roles and permission system so that administrators can really configure their own roles that fit for their scenario. So you can see everything that an admin can do and everything that an editor can do. You type in the information and that person will get an email with a link to set their password. Here's some information about your collection. One important feature to highlight here is that you can check this box to make your instance private. This is very important for groups that want to document human rights violations or want to include other sensitive information in their instance. We know it's a little confusing because Uwazi was originally developed to publish information, but now we know that all of the features that are included in Uwazi are also helpful for those that are working with sensitive information and need a way to organize and analyze that information. So we're working towards building out security features, and I will mention that in a minute. But just so you know now, this is where you would make your instance private, which means that only people with accounts that are logged in can access the information. You have some other options here. You can also set your landing page. And you can connect this to a Google Analytics account. Oh, and then also under collection, you can do some design work. You can upload a logo, you can upload images and do custom styles using CSS. Under the menu option, you can create a menu item. I realize now I had created a menu item under the demo, and so it was wiped out after 6 hours. But I can go into that later if you want to see that. And this is just what gives you these options at the top of your Uwazi site. And what's nice, something that I'll point out here is that, you know, one of the powerful things about Uwazi are these filters. And each filter will create its own unique URL. And so if you wanted to basically create a shortcut to any one of these filters because you think it's particularly important for your visitors, you would just grab the URL and you would put it in a menu. Or you can grab any URL and send it in an email, you know, any way to share that specific filter with another person. It's pretty helpful. Okay, let's go back to this demo. You can also create static pages and use Markdown. Here's the translation section. You can translate any of the text in the system. Yeah, I can go into that later if you want. And here's where you would create your filters if you wanted them to look a certain way. Okay, but now we're down here to this metadata section, which is a really important part of Uwazi. So as I mentioned before, Uwazi is really built around this idea of documents and entities. And down here under metadata is where you would define your document types and your entity types. And this is kind of like those key pieces of your data model. You can also, if you're familiar with content management systems, you can kind of think of these as like different types of content. And then beneath the document types and entity types, we have thesauri and relationship types. And these two options down here is really where you manage and design the connections between the information in your collection. So under thesauri, you're creating your lists or your taxonomies or your vocabularies or whatever you want to call this. But these are these lists that you would use to filter across information in your collection. So for example, I have a thesaurus called countries, and I have these 4 countries under here. So I can then add this property, this thesaurus, to any of the document types or entity types in my collection. And when I click on Sri Lanka, I can see all of the different documents and entities in my collection that have that property. So in a way, it's a way to connect everything together. And then relationship types is similar, but it's more flexible, where you can define the types of relationships between different entities or document types, and then you could then be free to like create these relationships on the fly. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But one example of a relationship type might be victim. And this is just as simple as saying, I want a document type called victim. That way, when you are looking at a person in your collection and you also have an incident in your collection, you want to connect these two things together, but you want to be able to define what that relationship type is. You can say this person was a victim in this incident. Similarly, we have a relationship type called perpetrator. We have a relationship type called witness. So these are some examples of how a person might be related to an incident. But then we also have a relationship type here called corroborating media. This could be media that supports an incident. So that would be the relationship type between those two things. Let me go back to this entity type. What you will do when you're building out your it's kind of like your architecture for the Uwazi instance is you create an entity type. Let's say in this case, I've created person, and you can add properties to that entity type. So a person will have well, a title and a date added, those are default. Person will have maybe a description or an image. So in this case, I've added a rich text field. I could say image or description. So that will be one property, but let's say we also wanted to add birth date. So I can add a date field, call it date of birth. I can say that I want this to display in those main cards so people can see them right away. I can use this as a filter. So in case my visitors want to search all the people with a certain date of birth, or maybe I want to have, yeah, no, let's just leave it at that. Let's see, what else might we want? A geolocation. I mean, I'd hate to actually put a geolocation for a person in a database like this, but maybe we should leave that out. Well, I think you get the point. There's also multi-select, and multi-select will give you the option of referencing any of the thesauri that you've created. So you can see that my thesaurus of countries is included in these options. But you can also, well, let's just leave it at that. Let's say we want to identify the country of this person. Oh, I don't think it's saved. Let's try this again. Let's say we want to use this as a filter and we want to show this in cards. So now that we've added country here, let's see how we actually add documents and entities. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Uwazi Reveal, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So just 5 more minutes before I get to any questions you might have. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is go to this upload section. It's called private documents if you hover over it, and it looks like a cloud with an arrow going up. Here's where you would upload new PDFs to your collection. You can either drag the document to this little box here, or you can browse your computer to find the PDFs, or you can create a new entity. So in this case, let's create a new person. This person's name is Jane Doe. It's a type person. Let's see. Let's find an image of Jane Doe. Oh my, let's not go there. Here's where you can add a description. If you wanted to add an image, you would just use the markdown language. You put the URL here. And then we're going to say that the country is Burundi. So we're going to save this. And then the next step is to publish it. So when you're ready, right now it's all going to just be saved in this uploads or private documents section until you publish it. And once you publish it, then it will be accessible in your library, which is this icon of all the blocks stacked on top of each other, and it's called public documents. So now if I change these filters and I look at person, I can see Jane Doe is included in this collection under person. Let's say I want to connect Jane Doe to an incident. I could go ahead and view Jane Doe. I would go to the connections option in the top right-hand corner. I would click on this edit button at the bottom, and I would create a new relationship hub here. Let's see, I want to make her a witness of an incident of this Ngagara attack. So now we can go ahead and save this. I can see how Jane Doe is now connected to this attack in Burundi. If I wanted to look at more information about the attack, I can see that Jane Doe here is witness of this attack. And then I can also see that these 5 people here are victims of this attack. I can see that there's some corroborating media, which happens to be a video. I can see that there's a document, which is a report from Human Rights Watch that describes the incident, and that the perpetrator has been identified simply as men in police uniform. Okay, this is Uwazi. Um, I think that many of you will probably have questions about our plans for Uwazi Reveal. So I just wanted to mention that Uwazi Reveal is really the next iteration of Uwazi. It is going to be what Uwazi version 2.0 is. Um, the only difference is that we are going to include some improved security features because we want Uwazi Reveal to be very secure for those who want to document human rights violations. So some of the features that we're looking at are that advanced roles and permission systems that I mentioned earlier. We know that a lot of organizations are documenting violations in networks of organizations, and we want to make sure that there's a really good way to manage who has access to what, who can upload information, who can verify information, who can publish information, all of that kind of thing. We're also building out two-factor authentication to make the login process more secure. We're going to build out an audit log so that if anything suspicious is happening, you can see who accessed what last and what they did. And then, of course, we're going to be having an external group perform a security audit on the code. Yeah, so this is the link for our newsletter, and everything is up on GitHub. The GitHub/Heradoc/Uwazi is where we have all of the code, all of the releases, all of the open issues. And anybody can feel free to go ahead and open up a new issue, whether that's a request or a bug. And in the wiki, we have the user guide. So please check that out if you want to learn more about Uwazi. I also wanted to mention that we're going to be hosting another Uwazi demo in Spanish on the 26th of October, which is a Friday. And we'll be posting more information about that in our blog, so stay tuned for that. Okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to see if there are any questions or comments. I hope that that was somewhat clear. Okay. So Indira, I see, okay, you're not on the call. Let's see what we have here. Oh, well, somebody asked if the recording will be made public, and yes, my plan right now is to edit the recording so that it's just what I just talked about up until now. But yeah, this will be available for people afterwards. How many documents can Uwazi support, and what kinds of documents? Okay, that's a great question. Rafa responded, the amount of documents, there's no limit to the amount of documents right now. We have users with thousands of files, and for now, only PDF files can be seen online. You can attach any kind of file you want to an entity or a document type. That was one of the features I didn't mention, is the attachments feature. But right now, it's only the PDF files that give us access to that text within the file that allows us to create the table of contents, the references, and also the advanced search. So right now we're limited to PDFs, but we want to open it up to other things. Video is fully supported with timestamps and other features. And the videos can live on Vimeo or YouTube or Facebook videos, and there's a few other options. You can also use sound files from SoundCloud. And then there's another question here from Priscilla. About the languages, can I write in Russian, Spanish, English, and French the titles, authors, and other information? I don't know if I completely understand the question. Rafa, do you want to unmute and talk about languages and how, like, the advanced search will automatically detect your language?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, the idea of languages that we have two types of approaches to languages. One is actually the language where you can see the application in different languages, right? Which is what Christian showcased. For that, you can do any type of languages. Yes, Priscilla, the ones you mentioned, Russian, Spanish, English, and French, are fully supported. The ones we're working on right now is the type of languages that are right to left, like Arabic. Those ones are still not possible to actually translate the system. Other than that, all languages are supported, and also there's an automatic detection of file languages for the PDFs you upload. So they don't have too much. You can actually upload a French PDF into the English version if you don't have the English version still available, and that will also work great with the search engines and the fussiness of the words. So if you search something like I don't know, court, it will find courts and other derivations of the same word. So yeah, there's fully support for this.
Thank you. And I believe that Arabic, the Arabic language is supported. You could certainly type in Arabic and, you know, you can upload your Arabic documents. But what we don't have support for right now is the right to left um, design of Uwazi. Does that make sense? Is that the right way of putting it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. But it's something that we want. It's on our roadmap. We just need to find the funding to build that out. Okay, there's a couple other questions here. Priscilla, let me know if that answers your question or if there's other specific questions you have about languages. Ramled asks, is Uwazi a standalone app or an internet app? And where are the files published stored? What are the options? So Uwazi is a platform that you could host anywhere. You would just need to, yeah, let me actually bring you to the GitHub. So you can just find the dependencies in the README file. You would need to install all these things on your server, and then you can install the Uwazi code and run the platform yourself. So in that instance, you can host all the documents yourself. Otherwise, Curadocs does host many instances. We have other products. We also have Casebox and OpenEBSys. So we do a lot of hosting for our partners in-house. We have a full-time systems administrator who manages those servers. We do secure backups. We charge a fee each year for these hosting services. And when groups host with us, we then maintain the code. We do regular updates. We would apply any security patches. They would be automatically updated to the next version of the code. But you don't have to do that. So when we host Uwazi for our partners, everything is then internet or browser based, and they would access their Uwazi instance through the internet. But you could also set this up, like I said, on your own server so that you can host the platform and the documents wherever you want. You could also host this code on your device. So you could download everything. So it does act as like a desktop client on your own computer. So then in that case, all the files would live on your computer. I hope that's helpful. We're also looking at some ways for users to be able to easily sync their information on their desktop to, or maybe Basically, the ability to sync data from one Uwazi instance to another Uwazi instance, or maybe from one Uwazi instance to a server. That's something that we are exploring with some of our partners who need this kind of feature. Would it be possible to see how to highlight a paragraph within the document and connect it to another document? Yes, I would be happy to demo that. Oh, and Priscilla's asking about Acrylic. Oh, okay. Can we write in Acrylic? I think yes, as long as that's, I mean, I think it depends on like your keyboard, right? Rom Led is asking, is the soft license based? I'm not sure what that means. Rafa, do you know what that means? Everything that we
Yeah,
use
I
is
think we
open
have
source.
an MIT license, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Is that the question? Yep. MIT license. We have it here all set up on our GitHub. You can go ahead and take a look at what that license is, but it allows for commercial use, modification, distribution, and private use. All right, let me show Manu how we do this text-to-text reference. So let me go into our demo and let me open up this document. Oh my gosh, do I have more than one document in here? Let me just double check. Yeah, I've got a bunch of documents. Okay. Let's open up this Human Rights Watch report about these attacks in Burundi. I can highlight this paragraph. And when I do, I see these three options automatically pop up. Do I want to use this paragraph and add it to the table of contents? Or do I want to connect this paragraph to another document in my collection? Or do I want to connect this paragraph to another paragraph in a document in my collection? So I'm going to select that option. The next step is to find that document where you want to connect it to a paragraph within. It is asking me to define the type of reference. So it's giving me all of the relationship types that I've created. Let me say related event. So maybe this paragraph is related to an event in a paragraph in another document. So let me go into this statement, oral intervention on situation of human rights. So then I select this document that I want and I click on the arrow to go to the next step. Now Uwazi has opened up this document that I selected and it's waiting for me to select the text. So let's say, for example, it's this paragraph here that I want to connect it to. And now I highlight that paragraph and I select save. Now I've created a reference connection between these two paragraphs. And I can go back. Let's see, I can open up this document and it's showing me the original paragraph that I selected from the other document. Let me go back to the questions here. Are there any limits in the architecture? Would you advise to use Uwazi for records management system? That's a great question. This question's come up a number of times as to whether Uwazi would be a good fit for a records management system or a case management system. It's absolutely possible. It just hasn't been built to manage like living case data in the way that maybe other platforms have. This is really about creating a relational database that one can use for analysis as opposed to having like a file on a person. Like I'm thinking of a doctor's office. Doctors would be using some kind of records or case management system so that every time their patient comes in, they have all the basic information there, but then they can update any of it whenever they need to, and they can add new notes for every visit. And maybe there are certain data points for each visit that they want to be able to track over time. All of this is possible, but it's just, it would take a little some creative thinking about how to model that kind of data structure in Uwazi. I hope that's helpful. Rafa, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, the one thing missing probably is this aspect of adding information, right? This is not
Mm-hmm.
something that you would say, this is the information from this date, now this is the information for this other date, and stack that information. As you said, that would require some kind of hack into the architecture of the model data system. That wouldn't be ideal. So yeah, probably not the best use scenario for the software. Yeah.
But I mean, we are interested in talking to groups about their needs because sometimes they don't need all of the features of an actual records or case management system in that way. This is something that we are exploring, and we're hoping to kind of figure out some steps forward in 2019, because a lot of the groups that we work with who are documenting human rights violations, they also provide direct support to these victims and survivors. So we want to support them in keeping track of that information, as well as the information about the attacks and the violations. So we're kind of trying to figure out what those needs would be and how we could address those. I should mention we also have a case management tool called Casebox that's been built with litigation case management in mind. So that's another tool that's available, but it doesn't provide um, this kind of database structure that Uwazi does, where you can analyze data across your collection. It's a little more siloed in that way. Is it possible to create automatic fields like an incremental identifier? I think it's possible. Rafa, do you want to respond to this question?
Yeah, not at the moment. At least you cannot add one of those fields. We could create it programmatically, but not available to the final user at this point. So, as Christine was saying, these are the type of things that we need to actually weigh and see what are the use scenarios, and if there's enough pull for a feature, it gets developed fairly quickly and gets into the pipeline. So yeah, we if there's interest. Probably it's best to contact us and let's see what your data is, what your structure would look like, and see what would be missing, and we can obviously develop anything that would be crucial and that would help others. If it's very specific to a particular use, it's more difficult, but if it's something that everyone would benefit from, it's easier to put it into the pipeline of production.
Mhm. Any other questions out there? These are all really great questions. Thank you. Anything that I missed? Anything you'd like to see or see again? Um, we would love to work with other developers out there if you're interested. I had the our tech stack up before. So we use Node.js, Elasticsearch, MongoDB, Yarn, and PDF to text. And the way that we've been developing the features is by working side by side with partners to identify what's needed and the best way to build these things out. So the more projects that come to us with a little bit of funding, the more we can develop these features and deploy them for everybody. That's the plan. So if we have enough groups that need this right to left feature for Arabic, we should be able to get that funded. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. If you do have any other questions, I'm going to type my email in here. Oh, there's one more question. Let me just type my email address here. If there are multiple options to select from, do I have to unselect manually, or is there a possibility to unselect all at once and not one by one and then selecting only the one I want? I think maybe what you're referring to is a default filter that was set up on one of these examples that I showed you. For example, I think maybe with Sahil, when you first go to their site, oh, actually, maybe it's this. When you click on documents, you see all of these selected. Um, I don't know if that's something that you can change in the defaults. I think you're referring to the filters, and I think that is possible. I mean, it's just this example that's like that, unless you're talking about the multi-select on any given entity or document.
I think it's the multi-select, which no, the answer would be no. At this point, you actually would need to unselect all and select the others. But that is something that obviously is a limiting user interface feature that needs to be developed. That's one of those things that, yeah, of course we need to develop that, and it would be done fairly easily. So something like unselect all.
Hmm. Yeah, great. Yeah, we need these kinds of use cases documented. And Ram is asking about hierarchical structure. It's such a great question. We were actually just talking about this. Um, so I think what Ram is asking is when you are documenting human rights violations, it can often be very helpful to be able to see a hierarchy in terms of chain of command. Um, so that when you're looking at the relationships, so if I go in and I look at this document, for example, and I'm looking at the relationships, and let's go to this incident and the connections, and I see all these people, but I don't really know how these people are related to each other. This is especially important for perpetrators. Like, let's say, um, you know, John Doe is the perpetrator, but if you want to understand who John Doe's boss is and who is the boss's boss, and then who's the boss's boss, you're going to want to be able to see some kind of hierarchical structure. This is something that doesn't exist right now in Uwazi, but it's something that should be possible and something we're exploring. We would just need to be able to work with somebody, yeah, and think through what that would look like. It's probably, yeah, no, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but yeah, we do want to be able to provide that. Great. Thanks again. If you have any questions, send me an email, kristen@herodocs.org, or feel free to send us a tweet. Somebody will respond. Thank you so much. And I hope that this is the first of many of these kinds of live demos where we can continue to answer your questions, but also continue to collect ideas from you, because this is really helpful for us as we're continuing to develop this. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for our upcoming events. Join our newsletter and follow us on Twitter, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much for joining.